Namaste and welcome to another edition of the Bharatvaarta Weekly. It's a nippy, cold Sunday morning here in Bangalore, and I have with me Ashish Chandorkar and Srivatsa Subarna to discuss some news and events from the week that was. Ashish, what's up? How are you guys doing?
Hey,
Good
Carrie.
carry, hi.
Carrie, it's nippy and cold in all of India. You don't have to specify Bangalore every week.
Oh yeah, that's
Uh,
right. So this is that time of the year when the rest of India experiences what Bangalore experiences through the year. So on that note, I mean, we had plenty of things to discuss this week. In fact, I mean, we were spoiled for choice, right? I mean, we had to narrow down on the 4 or 5 things that were really important for our viewers and listeners. So, all right, let's get to it. Now, before we progress any further, let's talk about last week's episodes. I think two very nice episodes. Vatsa, you hosted the one on digital media and narratives with Muthu and Srimoy. What was the highlight of that?
I think a few things. One was, understanding how differently digital news media was regulated as compared to print, and the amount of, I think, additional freedom or whatever you want to call it they had, and how some of these new steps are just bringing, digital media in line with print media. It was also very interesting to understand, the business model of digital media and how it is pretty much coming, on par with print media in terms of how it's looked at as a source of news and information. So to me, those were the interesting bits.
Right. And Ashish, we put this episode out yesterday on Indian securities market. Uh, w- Good change talking to Sandeep in a formal conversation.
Yes, he's a very interesting guy, like one of the leading lawyers in the country, but very humble and very eager to talk to people on Twitter, and also, of course, a domain expert in this area, which is securities law. So pretty interesting conversations and very nice anecdotes from how SEBI started regulating the Indian market, and also some insights on what's happening in the Gandhinagar IFSC, how would startups raise money in India. So fairly broad range of questions and fairly good answers by Sandeep.
Right. Okay, moving on to the first item of news for this week. Tamil superstar Rajnikanth announced earlier that he plans to enter politics. He said on Thursday that he will launch a political party in January next year, that's 2021, and that he will bring a quote unquote corruption free spiritual politics to Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu will see a contest between not only the incumbent AIA DMK but also AMMK and Kamal Hassan's MNN. He also joins a long list of Tamil actors who stood in elections for the chief ministerial position. What's a interesting development in Tamil Nadu?
Yeah, I mean, finally, I think around 25 years after he first decided to, try and influence Tamil politics, he's entering it formally, which is a good thing. Rather than, being on the side, he's decided to take a plunge. So just to give a brief background of, Rajnikant's history with Tamil politics. In 96, during the elections, that was when he first came and said that Jayalalitha, if she comes to power, even God cannot, save Tamil Nadu. The Congress actually split because they were, aligning with Jayalalitha. Uh, then in 2002, he started, something on Kaveri. I guess that's something that almost every politician in Tamil Nadu at some point has used as a pivot to get into active politics. He did a sort of volte-face and then supported the AIADMK NDA alliance in 2004 because he thought that river interlinking would happen and the water problems of TN would be solved. So, moving on, finally in 2017 was the first time he entered that he said that he was going to enter politics. But he said he won't contest the 2019 elections and his party would not support anyone. So finally, here in 2020, he's said that he's going to contest the 2021 Tamil Nadu Assembly elections. It's going to be interesting. Which way his votes will come from. Will it come from the AIADMK BJP side, because he's talking about spiritualism and so on, or his support base, as an actor, which is mostly the working class. So it'll be interesting to see which sort of group loses out, because I don't see him get even 5 to 6% votes. That's if he contests all election or all seats. That's the only scenario that is happening, and he is not contesting elections on his own. So he's the face of the party. He's not going to become chief minister if they win. So it's going to be a bunch of new folks with Rajnikanth sort of as the poster boy. So interesting developments. It just I just hope he doesn't play spoil sport, uh, because the AIADMK government has been pretty good in the last 2 3 years, even with the cyclone, the way they handled it, and the EPS OPS combined, they've shown themselves to be good administrators. So just hope that he doesn't act as a vote katwa and affects the AIADMK BJP alliance.
Yeah, Gary, I'm reminded of like a couple of dialogues from Rajnikant's movies, right? So, which he has been using for signaling mechanism as a to entry into the politics. I mean, of course, my Tamil pronunciation will not do justice for the messaging. So let me use the English translation here. But I think in the film Muthu, which is when he was first said that, I think there was a dialogue which said something to the extent of like, no one can tell when or how I will arrive, but I do come when the time is right. Right. So I think that is it all started with that kind of a like a dialogue context setting. And I think even much later in Shivaji, of course, there's a Hindi version of it. So this was a very popular political meme used in I think the last 3-4 years in Indian Twitter and on WhatsApp, which with the Hindi version said that Munna Jhund mein to Soor aate hain, Sher akhila hi aata hai, right? So not sure if he will do an alliance or will he stick to his dialogue or but yeah, fairly interesting. Let's wait and watch how the alliance shapes up in this case.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. Moving on to the next item of news. Again, this is some very optimistic, very nice news. Ranjit Singh Disle of Maharashtra won the $1 million USD Global Teaching Award. Disle is a government teacher from Maharashtra. He created history by sharing half of his prize winnings with the other finalists. He first came to recognition for bringing technology to classrooms, introducing QR codes in his classes and textbooks. He also spreads awareness on the importance of educating girls. His act of charity is sure to help all other finalists for the teaching award as well. Ashish, what do you think about this?
Very interesting development. I think a lot of us learned about the prize also this year through all the media buzz and social media buzz which happened in the last few days. The Global Teacher Prize is a 1 million US award, which is given by the Varke Foundation. It's given to a teacher who has made outstanding contribution to the profession. This foundation is actually a global charitable foundation, which is run by an Indian businessman by the name of Sunny Varke. He runs a company called GEMS Education, which is one of the largest operators of the K-12 school chains. And the prize has been there for almost like a decade now. It's not a new thing. But this year there were 12,000 nominations from like 140 countries around the globe. And the selection process was quite rigorous. The teachers had to, I mean, there was a filtering mechanism, and then of course there was a whole process of the teachers had to demonstrate that they had done what they were claiming. And then there was an external committee of auditors which would look at the claims of each participant. So they shortlisted 50 names. Interestingly, the 50 names had two other Indians, which we probably haven't heard enough about. But there was a lady by the name of Vinita Garg from Delhi who also was doing fairly similar stuff to what Ranjit Singh Disle won the award for. To use technology for promoting education. And there was a third person by the name of Shivajit Pain, who teaches in Rajasthan in the I think his college is known as Barefoot College because a lot of students who come there they cannot actually afford footwear. So so Shubhajit Payne is actually an IIM Lucknow alumnus who worked for IBM, who quit his job and then started teaching in Rajasthan. So fairly inspiring set of people who were shortlisted. Three Indians in top 50, and then of course there was only one Indian in top 10 after the final shortlist. And the award was announced by Stephen Fry, who's the British comedian and actor. And when I guess we all saw the moment of the actual announcement when Ranjit Singh Disle was with his family in Solapur. He teaches in a small village called Paritewadi, which in a Zilla Parishad school, and his main contribution has been to use technology, QR codes, basically to create animated content which can be taught, which can be learned at home even when the school access is not there. And this continuity of kids enrolling and then dropping off, and those who drop off cannot then learn, etc. He has kind of overcome some of that through his technology interventions. So very interesting and very inspiring. Of course, like as it happens in India, now that he has won the award, there's a beeline of politicians and important figures reaching out to him to felicitate him. But I just hope that other Indians who have done such stuff, such inspiring stuff, do not have to wait for a recognition which comes from outside India. Although it's sponsored by an Indian origin person, but we should know about these stories much in advance of when these awards are conferred upon them.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially in the era of social media that we live in, right? So, all right, moving on to the next piece of news. The Canadian PM, Justin Trudeau, said something last week that sparked controversy. He spoke about the ongoing farmers' protests, stating that the situation was quote unquote concerning. He also stated that Canada will be there to defend the rights of peaceful protest. Anurag Srivatsav, who's an Indian diplomat, called the comments ill-informed and stated that such comments are unwarranted when speaking about another country. Other members of Canada's cabinets have also commented on the issue. Canada's Defense Minister, Harjit Singh Sajjan, said healthy democracies allow peaceful protests. Right. So this is a pretty interesting thing. What do you think about this, Vatsa? Should Trudeau have said some of this stuff, or is it in his right to say all these things?
No, so I think to understand, we need to understand the what we call in India as the vote bank politics of Canada, right? There are 5 lakh Sikh people in Canada, which is a big number in Canada, right? Unlike in India. So they'll form a significant chunk of voters. In India, you would probably have ignored, 5 lakh people from a particular section because they wouldn't have had any material impact on the elections. The first time something like this happened was in 2018 when one member of his delegation, Trudeau's delegation, which visited India, was a Khalistan supporter. And it was then that even Captain Amrinder Singh, the CM of Punjab, and the Prime Minister, both of them pretty much ignored his visit, till the last stage, while he went about with his family, taking photos and so on. So it was made pretty much clear to him that supporting a separatist movement in India was not something that would be looked upon well. Again, political compulsions. Last year there was a report, and all instances of Khalistani separatism were knocked out of that terrorism report, which was an internal report in Canada. So he's mostly playing to his domestic gallery, trying to make sure he doesn't lose his votes. But India doesn't really fit into what you would call as a third world country. Like some of the countries in Africa now, we're self-sufficient in food, we are self-sufficient in power, we don't really need a lot of foreign aid to function as a country. So we would be better off without this sort of white savior syndrome behavior coming in, now and then, trying to tell us how we should run our country, how we should treat our people, and so on. So I think it was avoidable, his behavior, but I understand where it's coming from.
Ashish?
Yeah, I mean, as Vatsa said, like 1.5% of the population of Canada is Sikhs. So, and for some reason, Canada has had this alliance with with the reactionary form of political movements. I mean, not just in India, but even other countries also. They seem to be either protecting them, or they seem to be harboring. Like there is a they should be they would be harboring some of the more extremist part of these elements of these movements in their country. And of course, there's been the history of the Kanishk bombing and so on. So I mean, Khalistan movement has prospered in Canada, and it's a fact that even the movement in India wouldn't really sustain, any protests would not sustain unless there's a financial support, right? So, and look at the way the celebrities are kind of endorsing some of it, and we know that Indian celebrities don't do anything unless there's a financial angle involved. So, wonder what else is up to in terms of the Canadian support, or organizations based in Canada for this movement, and what exactly are the outcomes which they desire. But I think it's a fairly I would say it's a fairly negative turn for the Indo-Canadian relations, and the fact that India actually summoned the Canadian High Commissioner, who, and after which Trudeau actually reiterated his stance. So he has doubled down on his earlier statement. So not very sure how the relations between the two countries will evolve from here on.
Right. Yeah, and people seem to sort of attribute it to naivety or whatever, but I doubt that is the case, right? I mean, I think it's cold real politic at the end of the day, as you guys have said. Um, all right, so moving on, some somber news. This week also marked the anniversary of the Bhopal gas tragedy. Second was the 36th anniversary of the world's worst industrial disaster. Now, this day is marked as National Pollution Control Day in honor of those who lost their lives in this tragedy. 15,000 people died after a deadly chemical leaked from the plant of Union Carbide India Limited. A further 5 lakh were affected with increased cases of cancer and birth defects. The company responsible for the accident is accused of not providing adequate compensation to victims. Ashish, you have some context of this, right?
Yes, Carrie. So the Bhopal gas tragedy was a shocker in 1984. It happened on the night of December 2nd and 3rd. I had relatives in Bhopal who escaped, unhurt, which was good. But I think those of us who were living in MP, and in the days when there was no social media, no media itself, it was not just a big tragedy, but there was a lot of misinformation which happened, which went around for days together. So it was a big deal for the state in those times. The pesticide plant in Bhopal, there was a gas leak. There was a leak of methyl isocyanide, which is a highly toxic substance. And not just Bhopal, but the towns around the city were also impacted by that. And if you look at the death toll, the estimates have been varying. Like, the official number was pegged only around at 2,200 odd, but there were the local media claimed that there were thousands who died on that day itself, on the first night itself. And even when the compensation was announced by the state government much later, in I think in 2006, the state government gave out compensation. Even then, they compensated close to 4,000 families for those who had died, and more than 6 lakh injured people. So the numbers have been quite varying. The owner, which was the Union Carbide India Limited, at that time was owned by entity called UCC, uh, which and of course was the government of India stake also in it through public holdings, etc. And UCC then paid like 860 million last year. I mean, actually in 2019, for a full settlement of the case. But in 1994 itself, UCC had sold its stake to Eveready's India Limited, which then subsequently merged with McLeod Russell India. And after that, the license to operate that site was terminated, because the site was handed over back to the government of India by these private entities. And in the meanwhile, Dow Chemical had bought over the UCC a firm in 2001. So basically, several corporate entities have been involved in this, and hence no blame could really be pinned on any specific firm eventually, because there were so many mergers and acquisitions and divestments. that the real owners at that time, which was the Union Carbide, was never really punished to the fullest extent for this disaster. What also happened was that days after the gas leak, uh, Warren Anderson, who was the chairman then of Union Carbide, actually came to Bhopal. He was advised not to come, but he wanted to visit the site, etc. So he came. He was immediately arrested by the CBI then and put in a guest house, and put under like house arrest kind of a provision. But then he escaped only after like in a few hours. He was allowed to leave Bhopal in a plane which was hastily arranged in Bhopal, and no one really knows how he made the phone calls to US embassy and how that plane was arranged. Swaraj Puri, who used to be the main police officer of Bhopal in those days, he has a record which said that we arrested him on return orders, but we released him on oral orders. And where did these oral orders come from? Where did they originate? Was it the call of the Chief Minister Arjun Singh, or was it there was a instruction from Delhi? We still don't know. In his memoir, Arjun Singh, who has since passed away, he did write that he was instructed by a gentleman by the name of R.D. Pradhan, who was then the Home Secretary, apparently the Home Secretary, to let him go, to let Anderson go. But Pradhan later on has rebutted the argument, saying that he was never the Home Secretary at that point of time. He only took charge much later in Jan 1985. So it's kind of a mystery how and when like the orders came for the release of Warren Anderson. But the fact is that he didn't. I mean, he never faced any prosecution. In fact, the American courts dismissed appeals for a class action suit in the US. The Indian laws continued, and of course, as I said, the full final commercial settlement only happened in 2019. But the victims did not get much of financial compensation. In the meanwhile, in 2010, several employees of the original Union Carbide, including Keshav Mahindra, who was the non-executive chairman of the firm. Several of them were actually indicted in this case, but of course they were released on a bail after getting a 2-year imprisonment sentence. But largely speaking, the tragedy remains unsolved in a formal way, and I'm not sure how much have we learned from it, given that these disasters keep happening. I mean, albeit at a much smaller scale. The I mean, couple of names which need to be mentioned are the two railway officials in Bhopal that night. There was Harish Dhurve, who was the station superintendent of the Bhopal station, and also another of his officials by the name of Dastagir. These two gentlemen actually cleared several trains which were coming into Bhopal. Either they stalled them wherever they were by contacting the other station masters and telling them not to send the trains to Bhopal, or by letting some of the trains leave early from the Bhopal platform. I think one of the trains, which was very crowded, left 20 minutes ahead of the schedule. And these things in railways are not genuine. I mean, not done. Certainly not under the discretion of junior officers. But these two gentlemen, who themselves, I mean, Durve himself passed away in the tragedy, and then Dastagir's son passed away later on, I believe. They suffered major personal consequences in terms of their families, etc. But they literally saved the lives of thousands of people, because had the trains come to Bhopal that night, when the gas was lying low on a cold winter night, several thousands of people would have died. So ordinary Indians rose up the occasion, going beyond the call of their duty, but the politicians failed the country, as they almost always do.
Right. Wow. All right, moving on. The government has planned infrastructure projects worth about 10,000 crores in Nagaland. Union Roads and Highways Minister Nitin Gadkari said that these projects include a plan to make NH39 a 4-lane road. The government plans to build 10,000 kilometers of roads and bridges across the Northeast region over 5 years. The Northeast Ministry is planning to start 20 projects this year alone. Right? What's a huge investment in infrastructure coming in the Northeast? This is pretty exciting from a development perspective, right?
Yeah, I think it's great. So the Ministry for Development of Northeast Region was formed in 2001 under the Vajpayee government. Till then, there was no focused attention paid to the development of Northeast. even though it's so critical in terms of whether it's militarily or strategically, right? So if you look at it, since 2014, 2014 was when VK Singh was heading this ministry, and now you have Jitendra Singh. Uh, there are tons of projects that have been completed, and even now there are about 100 projects that are going on in Nagaland, and these cut across different areas, right? So it's agriculture, such as soil testing labs, tech infrastructure, so for financial inclusion, improving technology of the banks there or the legal system there, tourism, industries, sporting infrastructure, and so on. So I think the government has taken a very holistic view of development of that entire region. And obviously infrastructure is road infrastructure is a key element to that. If you look at just the numbers, Nagaland had 880 kilometers of national highway, which is now almost 1,550 kilometers. So that's more than a 75% increase. In addition, as you mentioned, these 14 additional national highways are coming, which will cost over 4,000 crores, and they'll add more than 260 kilometers of highway. So improving connectivity is definitely going to help trade and industry in that region, and you also have some of the other infrastructure coming up. Uh, so overall, great development. Uh, Plus, the talks with the NSC and IM are also going on with Mr. Ravi as the interlocutor. So hopefully, once people get access to more employment and better infrastructure, they will hopefully move away from violence, and the state sees more peaceful days ahead, which is exactly what it deserves.
Can we also to add this the Kohima Mao Road for which the foundation was laid by Minister Gadkari. It's also a very important part of the Asian highway, which would eventually connect India to Myanmar and then to Thailand onwards to Thailand. And the Dimapur Kohima Road, Dimapur is of course the main commercial center in the region. So I think that is also more or less 70-80% completed now. So I think these are good developments. The northeast focus has been pretty high for the government, and I mean this is another example of the same.
Right. Okay, moving on to the last piece of news. There were new cab aggregator guidelines that have been issued. Right, the guidelines ask aggregators to provide drivers with healthcare insurance of at least about 5 lakh INR with a 5% increase every year. Other guidelines include refresher training programs, careful driving, on-road safety, gender sensitization, and more. Aggregators will also be required to include women-only pooling. A new pricing system has also been suggested where the driver will receive at least 80% of the fare on each ride. Ola and Uber have created a strong duopoly in the country over the last few years. Ashish, how do you think these new regulations will affect them?
I think, given where the gig economy is, I personally believe that these are slightly regressive in nature. The way the government has come up with the caps in different parts. You alluded to some of it, Carrie, but just on the fares, for example, the drivers would get 80% of the share. Currently, this varies by the city, and what happens is aggregators can give lesser share to the drivers in more mature markets while incentivize them more by giving higher share, etc. So some of that flexibility will go away, which currently is used for onboarding new drivers and so on. Also, given that we are coming out of a pandemic where sharing of assets is going to be a taboo, and I mean we probably saw that in the increased car sales in the last couple of months.
Good point.
The aggregators aren't exactly in very good place right now. So putting these rules now, I mean, these rules could have been brought in and contested maybe a year ago, but coming out of the pandemic, this is going to hurt both the aggregators. And as we know that they have been, downsizing their teams and so on. I'm not very sure uh, if this will help in any way possible. Even the search fares, for example, have been capped at 1.5x the base fare, and with all the other requirements of the new labor laws, the social security code talking about mandatory social security for gig workers, plus the requirements of insurance, etc., which have come in these guidelines. Some of it will be very, very cost sensitive for both Uber and Ola, and I actually feel that if some of it is not tweaked, the business itself may not flourish. In fact, it may even die in some cities, in less profitable cities in the years to come or in the months to come.
Yeah, absolutely. One only has to look at the chaos that it's caused in San Francisco. These gig worker rights and regulations that have been imposed, right? All right, so that's a wrap from us on the Bharatvaarta Weekly. We have an episode, very interesting episode, coming up on the GHMC MC polls that were recently concluded, where TRS did come back to power as a single largest party, but then the BJP made very big strides. Ashish, what should people look forward to?
Yeah, interesting municipal election. So much noise and so much analysis of a municipal poll. Generally, it's reserved only for Mumbai and Delhi historically.
Exactly.
But I think Hyderabad has attracted a lot of attention, mainly because it also sets the tone for the assembly elections, which is 3 years down the line. December 2023 is the current schedule. So look forward to the political analysis of Rohit. I firmly believe he's one of the best minds in the country when it comes to analyzing and explaining the details of how politics works. So look forward to this. And of course, who's a Hyderabad native and an expert, and he writes on the politics for Mind for Adit's portal called Mind. So I think it will be a fascinating discussion.
Yeah. And if you want to continue from the last time where we left off on what the Indian National Congress can do about their future, then you know what's coming up in the next episode. So, all right, thank you, folks. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we hope that you'll skip the news and watch the weekly next week as well. So, from Ashish, Vatsa, and myself, take care, stay safe, and enjoy your week ahead. Bye-bye.